share my screen, Bob, so I can share the
yes. Here we go.
I can just share the link here.
Yeah. Can you share that now?
Yes, I think I can. Yeah. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, so our first point here is about Mystique Hardfork. We have had a few discussions here on the discussion page for Mystique. Basically, the proposal was to include 3198, 3529, 3541. We find out once we were trying to add 3198 that it heavily depends on 1559, and as we are not implementing 1559, we decided it's not a good idea to implement it 3198. So this will be our first fork for the EVM, I think. Well, that's something that we will need to discuss within the community. Yeah, so the options we evaluated were here, down here. So basically, the first option will be to not implement 1559, not implement 3198. Another option will have been to not implement 1559 and make base fee to return 0. And a third option will be to partially implement 1559 by changing the block structure, adding the base fee header, and make it to equals always 0, and implement 3198 as it is defined in the EIP. We had an internal conversation. We decided that the best way to go would be to go with the first option, to, well, not implement 1559 at all, because, well, changing the block structure just for implementing an EIP, it will be kind of overkilling. And also, it's not well defined, the behavior of base fee when 1559 is not activated. So making the base fee return 0 may turn into edge cases that we are not sure if we are so confident to cover. So the most conservative way to follow will be the first one, to not implement any of those. And well, that's part of a little brief of the current status of what we are now. And so Mystique will end up being just 3190, 29, 35, 41. And well, that will just be it. I mean, it will be probably like a tiny hard fork for us. But there was also the proposal to evaluate if it would make sense to wait a little longer until we have more EIPs to include into a hard fork. And maybe that's an open conversation yet. But yeah, my personal take on that is that, I mean, we can add these two EIPs. It will not be so difficult, and we can get cover for some situations, like, for example, well, alternative refund reduction will be to face certain attacks regarding gas tokens. 35, 41, it will not be so bad if we don't add it. But well, if you are making a hard fork, it will make sense to add it now. But I think that the conversation is still open for this.
And Diego,
Yep.
Can you say a little bit about what 3541 would accomplish if implemented? Just to make sure everybody here
Yes, absolutely.
understands.
So basically the idea of 3541, did you say 3541, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
You've
Yes.
already explained 3529, which addresses gas token and other stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yes, the 3541 is just for not executing contract code that begins with EF byte. And that's basically for saving a namespace, kind of a namespace for some future upgrades to the EVM. And right now, we have this conversation previously, but the problem right now will be if somebody will deploy some code with the EF bytes that will become unexecutable in the future, but in reality, there is no functional contract code, functional contract code that will make use of EF as a first. Eventually, somebody makes the deployment of a static code that would not do anything. It will not do anything in the future either. So we are quite safe. So basically, that's the idea of 3541.
Excellent. Thank you. Yep.
Sure. So do we have an agreement to make Mystique with 3521 and 3541?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great.
I agree as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wait a second. What is the agreement? What's the agreement?
To make a hard fork, just implementing 3591 and 3541. 3529 and 3541.
So
Okay,
defining the scope there, Isaac. Not
Yeah.
the timing.
Okay. So the intention. So what we're deciding now is to remove 3198 from the Mystique schedule.
Yes.
And does this removal of the sub EIP, so to speak, does that change the schedule of the Mystique deployment plan?
Yes.
How so?
Sorry.
How does it change the schedule? Or like the timing, I guess.
Well, yes, that's the next point for setting the dates. So originally
Okay.
we had
Okay. Sorry, Diego. I'm just getting the whole scope of this here. So the first decision is you decide these are that we want to remove, if we want to remove this EIP from the Mystique specification. And then there's another independent decision, and that independent decision is to modify or not modify the Mystique activation numbers.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Well, we will need to change those because, well, for Mordor, it was set for 15th of December. So yeah, we are forced to change that. But so starting from today, so 2 weeks, it will be after New Year's Eve. Maybe we can, I don't know, probably we can move all this starting from January 5th, maybe for Mordor activation, 10 days later, Cody, and well, 9 or 10 days later, go to mainnet. I don't know how do you see that?
And part of this decision is related to the first decision, which is about the EIPs that are actually going to be in scope. Because, for example, if we were to, instead of only striking 3198 from the from the meta specification. If we were, for example, to strike all three, then obviously those activation numbers become a moot point because we don't have a fork that we need to implement, right? Is that extreme version of the first decision where, in addition to deciding that 3198 shouldn't be implemented, are we also discussing an option where we don't implement any of them for some period of time? Or
Well, yes, I think it's open.
Okay.
My take on that is that we should do something in the short term. In the short term, just for, I mean, from my perspective, is not so. I mean, there are not so many changes. Probably, at least I'm talking about the basic code base. I don't want to talk about core get that I don't know the source code. But for Besu, it's not that complicated to add these two EIPs. So I think it's good for us to be prepared for probably, I don't know, maybe in the not so far future, some hashing power will come into ETC, and I don't know if somebody will be willing to attack our network by exploding something hidden behind 3529, for example.
right. Yeah, I think I'm agreed with you in that it seems like the most practical and pragmatic decision is to strike base fee and keep those remaining two, and move forward with a slightly delayed fork. But I'm just trying to make sure that everybody who's here, if they haven't been in the loop, that at least they have a full understanding of the context and the options.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Isaac, what was the comment behind the attack?
Behind the attack.
You said that you were deferring. I'm trying to remember what you said. You said, I'm not sure if people will be motivated to attack, something like that.
I think if I said the word attack, and we'll be able to check the the recording.
No.
Hopefully,
I think it was me to say that, the attack word.
Okay.
Well, basically, I'm not so aware of the attack, but I think that was something regarding the gas token and not incentivizing saving huge chunks of storage for then exchanging that for gas refunds. Well, basically that was the idea behind 3529.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so I think our concerns with any potential unknown attack vectors there are to do with like denial of service type attacks,
Okay.
not reals.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
and for you, sir, who just asked, I don't see your name there, unfortunately, but if you're not familiar with this, and I'm only going to say this for anybody who isn't familiar with this, but the rationale there with the language about attacks with the gas repricing is that anytime you're managing gas prices, typically those are being adjusted to improve them and to remove inefficiencies in those pricing models, and inefficiencies in gas pricing models are typically open doors to being sort of scare quotes exploited by an attacker, where they can cause the computers on the network to do more work than they're actually paying the gas for.
Right. Okay, great, thanks. I'm Henry, by the way.
Okay, hey Henry.
Thanks. Thanks, Isaac.
Okay, well, great. I think we have covered most of the points regarding Mystique. So we are having a hard fork at the sometime now so far in the future with just these two EIPs. And is it okay if we will move about discussing approximately dates of activations? How do you feel about setting Mordor for January 5th, then Koti 10 days later, and Mainnet 10 more days?
That sounds great to me. But anybody else?
I can see a thumbs up from Chris.
I'm thinking it may be a little early in that January 5th in terms of working days is hardly any time away with the holiday break.
The whole what? Sorry.
With the holiday break. I'm just thinking
Okay.
it might be a bit near.
And one thing to note too, as we're planning this out, it seems like we should at least touch on the anticipated work that we do need to do to make this change. Diego, you've already said that for Besu, it's fairly trivial. Is that the case for this tentative modification for Besu
Yes.
to strike the base fee opcode? And then for Corgeth, it's also the actual implementation is pretty straightforward. The bulk of the work, as I understand it, and please, Chris or Luke, chime in if you feel differently or agree, that most of the work is with the testing, is specifically in that Corgeth generates test data based on the configuration that we're anticipating, and then Diego would love to work with you too, and you'll be able to use that test data and run that against Besu as well. But unfortunately, this test generator that I've hacked into Corgeth does seem to work, but it never works the first time. So it usually takes a little TLC, but that's going to be the biggest project for Corgeth.
Yeah, sounds great. So, Bob, what about January 10th?
Well, I mean, I'd really defer to you guys as the core devs. I mean, if you feel you've had enough time with that, then that's fine. My thought was just that it might be a little tight, but it's really your call.
Well, yeah, I think we can move it to January 10th. I know, and then will be January 20th, and by the end of January. So we can have sometimes during these weeks and probably the first week of the year, the next year, to make our internal testing. We made this try with Chris previously. I mean, trying to connect our both nodes for King Mordor at the time. And well, we discovered all these situations about the base fee. So I think we have set up our internal testing scenario to move forward on the upcoming hard fork. So
I'm ready to test with you at any time. It will be nice if beforehand Corgeth has already all the test passing.
okay.
But either way, I don't believe anything will break. So anytime that you are ready, just ping me and we will book probably the next day on testing together.
Awesome. Okay, so let's set some date. So we can move it to January 10th, then January 20th, and January 30th. Okay, and then we can have all this time until Mordor activation for our testing.
Mm-hmm. And just sort of sketching that out from the practicalities of rolling that out to the network. If we have deployed to Mordor and tested on the actual network on the 10th, then that gives us, like, let's say 4 days to do that, which is probably plenty of time, I think. Then that would give us something like 2 weeks until we would expect the mainnet to be activated. And although that's a little tighter than I would love, I think it's also achievable.
I would prefer giving a bit more gap, as Isaac suggests, for mainnet. The only reason is that let's say that we test both Mordor and Koti, and the next day we make a release so as the community installs the latest versions. In that case, I would like that the community has a bit more time.
Okay.
Probably 2 weeks will not be enough for everyone to upgrade their nodes.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, it will be great if we prepare some content and so as we release a Twitter and everything, so as everyone knows that he has to update.
Okay. Okay. So what about a month from Mordor until mainnet? So we can have Mordor on January 10th, then Kodi 10 days later, and mainnet 20 days later. That will be fine. Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Isaac.
Yep. Yeah, that's okay with me. Of course, I'm totally sympathetic to that. Just as an aside, from a bureaucracy standpoint, this kind of conversation happens every time that we have a fork, and we sort of go through the motions of figuring out how much time it's going to take. And of course, it does depend on what the fork is going to be and stuff, but it might be helpful to have, like, to work together and have a part of this ECIP legislation that would, say, here's some guidelines for typical rollout, so that it doesn't seem like we're pulling these numbers out of our sleeves, which we sort of are, but of course, with the our collective experience with it and working together to fit the situation. But in general, it'd be nice in the future to be able to say, the protocol says that you give a month after the last test net upgrade. That's the minimum amount of time that it takes to roll out to the main network. So that we don't have to make this decision every time. Have a documented rule we can work.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't know how much time will take to give some notice to, for example, exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much
this
time do they need.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a recurring thing, and it'd be great to have it both have it written down as a general rule of thumb, at least, and then also to be able to keep track of upgrade rates and things like that, because I think many of us have been around the block, and we have a sort of our own subjective senses about how the network does handle the upgrades as a whole. But it'd be interesting to be able to keep records of that, so that we can know if our rule of thumb is optimistic or conservative.
Mm-hmm. Yes, completely agree. Excellent. Well, okay, so I will propose those changes. I will make the map for the blocks. Probably I will have to adjust the Kodi, I think, or Mordor. I think Mordor blocks. Yeah, the time between blocks for Mordor, for making the numbers more accurate. But okay, I will come up with a proposal in this very same pull request. We have some other point in the agenda for discuss to have these meetings more frequently, or having like a schedule. I think that will be great. I don't think every 2 weeks will be a little much for the pace that we are moving, but I think we can have this once a month for sure.
Yeah, sounds better, I think, to discuss the things about the chain and also the clients. Monthly thing is good.
Excellent. Great. Well, yeah, we can set up some day of the month, and then we can, yeah, make the proper schedules and invites. I think that's all on my side. I don't know if anybody else has something more to say.
The only thing I would chime in with is I don't know if Cody Burns is on this call, but he's the original author of the ECIP, and if he is here, I'd love to hear from him. Otherwise, maybe we can get something in writing from him. But if not, that's okay too, and we'll catch him on the rebound. No, Cody. Okay, that's all.
Okay, great. As I think so, we can give it a few seconds. Okay. Well, guys, I think we are good. Thank you all for attending and for your time.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good Christmas,
Okay,
everyone.
thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Yep. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Happy holidays, everybody. Over and out.
Happy holidays. Bye.
Happy
Okay.
holidays.
Bye-bye.